What's up, guys? Welcome to the Stats Free Sports channel. Let's get right into it. Here to answer another NFL mailbag question. Before I get to the question, this is kind of a follow-up video to what I've done the last couple days. I did a video today on Leonard Fournette being cut and the top 3 landing spots video, and I also did a video yesterday on another NFL mailbag question on should Carson Wentz be targeted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in free agency. Now the question is, should the Buccaneers trade for trade Mike Evans? Excuse me. And quick answer, yes, for sure. I hinted it, and the person asked me this on social media because they heard me say in both of those videos. I did one today, and I did one yesterday, and in both of those videos, I mentioned the Bucs might be going through a mini rebuild. They got a lot of free agents. They're losing a lot of guys this off season. Their cap hit is for Tom Brady's like 30 something million. The overall team cap is like -50, and they had the option. The Bucs had the option to take some of the Tom Brady cap and push it toward next year, and they decided not to. And that's a big red flag to me. The NFL Combine right after, during, and right after are when some of the biggest trades are kind of outlined and detailed and worked out, while all these teams are together in one spot while they're in Indy. So I think you could possibly see a trade come out for a lot of these guys: DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Jerry Jeudy. Guys I mentioned in my past recent videos. I mentioned Jeudy twice in the last 2 weeks. I mentioned D Hop a while ago when the news first broke, but it makes sense. The guys who are going to be traded around this time now, it just makes sense. So a guy like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, I mentioned yesterday in my Wentz video that I could see the Buccaneers waiting until the NFL trade deadline to do it. But there'll be no point, honestly. And you do get some of those times where teams wait to the deadline, but it's no point. If you're in the rebuild stage, why do you want to win? So it is smart to get rid of one of those guys, Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. Mike Evans, he's the elder, excuse me. He has 1 year left on his contract. He'll be the most likely person to be traded of that duo, and it just makes sense. You don't know where the Bucs are headed. I think they're going to start over, and it just makes sense to get picks back, get draft capital, and then just to make something happen. Now, the teams that Mike Evans could be traded to, there's a bunch. There's a bunch of teams that need him. There's a bunch of teams that fit. You go with the Ravens first. Their first option, and it doesn't matter what happens to Lamar Jackson. Honestly, I think if they don't get Lamar Jackson, they trade Lamar somewhere else. They will probably target Daniel Jones. They'll probably target another decent quarterback, and they can have a weapon just like Mike Evans just sitting there waiting for him. Whoever it is, if it's not Lamar Jackson, so that makes sense to me. Trading probably a second rounder, a second and third, second and fourth should get it done for everybody. Mike Evans, a little older now. I wouldn't really do a first for him unless it's a late first. Um, but yeah, Mike Evans to the Ravens makes sense. They just hired, and I always love going with past connections. If you don't know, Todd Munchkin, I mentioned him in another video or two ago about the Ravens and a whole nother player, but he was the former OC for the Bucs a couple years back. So he's familiar with Mike Evans. They just hired him as a new offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, so that makes sense there. I love past connections. So, trading for Mike Evans to have for whoever the quarterback would be, if it's not Lamar Jackson, makes the most sense. Next, you have the Steelers. The Steelers make sense. Pairing up him with Pickens and Deontay Johnson makes a lot of sense. They need to get Pickett some more weapons, and they need to get Pickett a better offensive line. So, it's kind of tough to see where you would lean towards, but just going just on weaponry, giving Evans Pickett would be fantastic. It'll be for a franchise like the Steelers, who are kind of cheap on getting, or who would rather go for the draft picks and rather go through the draft and get their players. They don't like trading for players mostly, at least not on offense. Star players. So but they need someone to really that's established already, ready to be dominant right now, and adding Evans to young George Pickens to Deontay Johnson would be fantastic. That'd be a great move there. So I have the Steelers, I have the Ravens, I have The Dallas Cowboys. Yes, they're trying to get better. And a more logical pick to me would be Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks makes sense. I'm gonna do a video on that probably tomorrow, honestly, because I do believe a guy like Brandon Cooks, who I mentioned about 2 weeks ago, also to be traded to the Buffalo Bills, possibly. I did hint in that video saying the same thing, that he could be possibly going to the Cowboys. That makes sense also. Um, so yeah, Mike Evans to a bunch of these teams, man, make a lot of sense. It just depends on how it shakes out, and who want to give up the most for him, honestly. So yeah, I am in agreement. Mike Evans should be traded now. No point waiting until the NFL trade deadline. Just do something you're already going to do. And the summer's a long summer. It's just now getting March. Today's March 1st. So he could be dealt later on. Um, just depends on how it works out. But I definitely think best case scenario for the Buccaneers, go ahead, get them out the way now, get something, and then you can start your draft capital either for this year or next year, however you want to play it, and starting to change the team up however you want to do it. And that's just a thing that has to be done. I don't think Todd Bowles is the head coach for the future, honestly. So I think he'll be gone probably after this season. So after this, they'll just rack up on draft picks, get a new head coach next season probably, and then see where your team wants to be at or going to be at after this season here. When you have a base of one-star receiver in Chris Godwin, a decent old line, a great right tackle, and a great young right tackle in Tristan Wirfs. Devin White, is he still an elite linebacker? Should be, but you never know. You got a couple corners, Carlton Davis. You know what I mean? So uh, safety, forgot dude name now, the Antoine Whitfield Jr. So you got a couple pieces here and there that are still going to be stalwarts. Got Vita Veda on the front line, so you have things to work with. You got to find out what's going to stick, what's not, things of that nature. So I can see my Evans being moved. Just a matter of when, not if. And I mentioned earlier trade deadline, but go ahead and move it up now. It makes the most sense. Combine, all 32 teams are right here in attendance right now. Go ahead, get to talking. Go ahead, get to working. Get some moves done. And I do expect pretty soon to hear some names ringing off pretty soon. Draft time is coming up pretty soon. It's fast. Draft time is approaching, June, July. So these teams are definitely going to start willing and dealing and getting some deals done. Like I said, Brandon Cooks, Hopkins, maybe Evans. The list goes on. Who else could be dealt? Garrett Bowles, Jared Judy. So guys I've done video on. So it depends on what teams be aggressive, what teams separate themselves from the others, and they'll be interesting to see once the deals are finally being dealt. So that's it for the video, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.